Zimbabwean businesses have begun to drop prices of services and commodities. This after President Emmerson Mnangagwa warned that government would find measures to deal with price increases by businesses. Mnangagwa has called on Zimbabweans to boycott outlets that refuse to lower their prices. We're joined now by Zimbabwean political analyst Tino Mambeu. Did I say that correctly, Tino?
Yes, you did.
Apologies. I know we have spoken before. Thank you so much for coming in. Your reaction to this news coming out of Zimbabwe. Obviously, for ordinary Zimbabweans who are trying to get by and put food on the table, this is good news. But perhaps the question is about the way in which these price reductions are being enforced.
Well, I think the bottom line is that the price reductions that we are talking about have not been in a way that can be celebrated to a larger extent. I'll give, for example, that a 2 liter of cooking oil would normally have costed previously, a week ago, it cost $25. But it has been reduced by $3 or $4, and that doesn't really have an impact on the economic situation of the peasants, economic situation of the civil servants. I will tell you that in 2018, civil servants were earning about $346. I'm talking about your teacher, your nurse, and that. And, you know, the price then of cooking oil was about $2, $3. And when it has gone up to 25 and comes down to $18, I don't think that has got a positive impact on the take-home or on the living circumstances or living conditions of an individual. At the end of the day, we would appreciate that the prices should continue to fall down and also the salaries to be adjusted in a manner that shows consistency between the prices of commodities and what people earn.
Now, what are you hearing from people on the ground in Zimbabwe? Because there's been reports that the Zimbabwe Republic Police have also warned that they would be enforcing the pricing of goods in the local currency. That would be quite alarming for people or businesses thinking of or already doing business in Zimbabwe, that it seems to be a bit of a hard-line approach to these price reductions, and would that not have an impact on their businesses if they're just reducing prices without looking at how it's going to impact their bigger business plan?
I think the bottom line is that there's been a tendency, I think, from the days of President Mugabe to try and issue dictates and issue commands on the economy. That has proven to be very futile, and it has not really brought relief to Zimbabweans. What we would have appreciated is a situation whereby market forces collide to an extent that you know, suppliers are forced to reduce prices as a result of demand and as a result of the availability of alternative sources of products in that same range. But where you find the president telling people that he would act upon them in a manner that is not forthcoming in terms of the law, I think that is common economics, and it is a record of failure in the context of Zimbabwe.
Now, I remember we spoke at length about the promises that this new president was making on the eve of the elections. I just remembered we spoke, and many promises being made about trying to turn around Zimbabwe's economy, which is in rack and ruin. What has he done, other than this news coming in about him demanding a price reduction for services and commodities? Have you seen any movement in what he's promised in trying to get the wheels of the economy going again?
Well, there's been, you know, some kind of work. But unfortunately, the work that has been done on the economy does not provide confidence on the majority of Zimbabweans. I think we would have known about what Minister Tino Mambeu has been preaching about, which is the stability program, the short-term stability program, which has focused primarily on trying to work on the currency and trying to improve confidence of the business people. But to a very larger extent, the biggest problem in Zimbabwe has not been really the economy. It has been the political will amongst the people of Zimbabwe, amongst the leaders of the political discourse. I think the major work that is at stake here is to try and find consensus between Chamisa and Mnangagwa to say that let those two people talk together, dialogue, and find a way forward. The biggest problem that we are facing in Zimbabwe is of a nation that is partially divided between the MDC side and the ZANU-PF side, and that has brought too much discontent, too much disharmony, and whatever that the president might try to do at the end of the day will not be viewed in good light. I think Zimbabwe has yet a record of false promises, false pronunciations. I think we also have to remember that before the advent of bond notes, When it was announced that there will be bond notes, there was a lot of street action, people uprising and saying we don't want bond notes. So there is a lot of policy mistrust. Whenever a new policy is brought about, people interpret that their savings are now being wiped off and that things will not work out for the best. At the end of the day, the current measures, they would have been, they would have been the greatest. I mean, it's one of the greatest things that Zimbabweans need. But the bottom line is the fundamentals have not been okayed. The areas around people have not, have not been worked on. So let's rather work on ourselves as a people and say this is the direction that that we are going to take as a people. But at the moment, what we have is a president who is trying to reform economically and at the moment failing to reform politically, forgetting that we have not reached an economic abyss on the basis of mismanagement of the economy to a large extent. We have reached this abyss from the 2001, 2002, 2003 as a result of poor political landscape that does not favor business to operate. So there is no way the president would want to turn around and try to separate politics from the economy. At the end of the day, the politics and the economy of Zimbabwe are one. There should be work as much that should be done on the politics to make sure that the economy can function well. There is no economy which will function in any part of the world without proper politics.
Thank you so much for that. Tino Mambeu is a Zimbabwean political analyst. Thank you so much for coming to give us some insight on that news coming out of Zimbabwe.